It all starts with a commotion in the pub. The guards tumble in with some girl who was brought by force. Inside, they mock her in every possible way, forcing her to lick the table. The protagonist Guts, a one-eyed warrior sitting at the counter, cannot stand impudence and kills all but one. To him, he leaves a message for their master. The Black Swordsman has arrived. A survivor arrived at the castle, delivered the message, and his minister told his guards to look for this man in black. But the minister himself is afraid of his master. At this time, being in the forest, the warrior hears demonic voices reminding him of the brand on his neck. He even tries to hit one with his sword, but it was an illusion. Guts heads for the castle, killing all the guards in his path. The minister also fell under the distribution. His master turns out to be not a human, but the boss of snakes. There he turns from a man into a huge reptile with a human face, but Guts defeats him and takes the relic hanging from his neck. Bazuso is a huge knight in armor, and with an axe, there are rumors about him that he cut down 30 warriors with one blow. Guts grapples with him. Bazuso is very strong, but the main character is very fast and kills him. For this, the guard gives him coins and calls him to his ranks, but he refuses. On the way, Guts is attacked by robbers. They knew that he was paid generously for Bazuso's death. He kills two, with the rest becomes scared. Guts himself ran to them, but Casca, one of them, shoots him in the arm. The two exchange blows for a long time. But their leader, Griffith, takes over the fight. He's even faster than Guts. Hitting his saber on the shoulder, Griffith takes him out of the fight. Healed, Guts wakes up in a camp of young mercenaries. Their Casca comes up and beats with one fist on his sore spot. All these 2 days, Casca treated and warned him. There he also meets Griffith. He turns out to be the leader of the Falcon Squad. Together with Guts, they headed up the hill. There, Griffith compliments his strength and calls him into his ranks. Guts doesn't trust him and decides to fight him honestly with swords. Griffith easily parries his blows but does not attack himself. The helmet protects their duel from interference. Guts receives many cutting wounds, but they end up falling down the mountain together, where Griffith beats him in a fight and knocks out his shoulder. In return for mercy, he takes Guts into his ranks. Casca is bewildered by Griffith's mercy. At night, a group of fighters gather to kill Guts because they do not trust him, but Casca stops them. Upon their departure, he wants to thank her for the treatment, but Casca says that it was only an order. At night, all the mercenaries were supposed to attack the base and burn all the supplies. Guts was with them. Griffith gave him the order to guard the rear. Their attack was well planned, and Guts single-handedly dealt with a detachment of heavy cavalry. So one fighter reported, in fact, Guts' horse was knocked out and he was surrounded. Griffith came back for him because he felt something was wrong. Together, they led the remaining enemies to the fortress, where an ambush awaited them. When everyone was celebrating, Guts sat on the wall of the fortress. Pepin brought it, even though he didn't want to. Everyone considered his role in the battle the most important and waited for him at the celebration of victory. In the morning, one fighter says that their squad was formed because of Griffith's strengths. The mask reveals that he is calling for Guts. There they foolishly douse themselves with buckets of water. Guts sees the same pendant on his neck as the snake boss wears. Griffith asks him to continue cooperation because yesterday's fight is just the first step. The next day, there was another fight. In it, Guts remembers his past. Gambino is a man who raised him as a warrior. In every battle, he helped and covered him, but he eventually goes insane and attacks Guts. He accuses him and considers him the son of Satan because he was born when his mother was already dead. As a result, Gambino dies at the hands of his henchmen, and the squad in which they were accuses Guts of treason. In battle, they win again, even when there were twice as many opponents. Now Guts was appointed commander of the strike force. Since then, 3 years have passed and the Falcon Squad has multiplied many times over. Guts' powers have also increased over time. He single-handedly opposed the detachment while help was still on the way. The detachment already had its own huge fortress. In the castle, Casca calls him to talk. She accuses him of heroism because at another time he could pose a danger to his troops. Their argument is stopped by Griffith and wants to talk to him in private and remembers their first meeting. And Guts apologizes for his arbitrariness. In the castle, the king himself proclaims Griffith a knight because the merits of the Falcon detachment were very well developed on the success of the kingdom. Before the battle, they plan an attack on another fortress. Casca also became a squad leader. Their solution was to attack the main gate because if attacked from the rear, the battle could drag on. During the attack, everything went as usual smoothly. All fighters coped well with the enemies, but it turned out it was an ambush. Almost immediately, as the troops entered the fortress, all the houses began to collapse one by one. Guts immediately noticed something was wrong. The fighters were almost not injured, and after the explosions, Casca praised Guts for the right, albeit unauthorized, decision. At the time of the attack, the commander of the Blue Whale detachment was present in the castle. Upon arrival at his shelter, he informed the commander that the Falcon squad had been defeated. In the fortress, the king gives the order to attack another castle. After the defeat of the castle, a messenger arrived to Griffith. He said that the fortress was captured. Except for the main tower, there was some very strong warrior there. One of those present nearby realizes that this is Zod Nosferatu, sometimes fighting for fortresses. At this tower, they don't want to let Guts inside without help. 2 hours ago, he sent 50 warriors there. And then, all maimed, one warrior comes out and calls the name Zod the Immortal. Guts breaks down and heads for the tower. Inside, he sees dozens of bloody corpses. A little further on, he sees the monster itself. He was a 3-meter Hulk, living for more than 300 years. His strength was huge. With one blow, he pushed Guts into the columns of the tower. He was very surprised that someone in the last 50 years could parry his blows. In one of these blows, Zod's sword fails and breaks. Guts seizes the moment and plunges his broadsword into his chest. At that moment, rage overwhelms Zod, and he begins to transform. He doubles in size and becomes like a real Satan. He is very surprised by such an opponent, but takes him in his paw with another blow and is almost about to crush him as Griffith's squad arrives. They distract the monster from Guts by firing crossbows at him. Griffith ordered his people to retreat, and he, along with Guts, attacks Zod. They cut off one of his arms, but Griffith is hit by a monster. Zod sees a red royal egg on Griffith's neck and releases it. He tells Guts that he has to postpone their duel. He also says that a person with such a thing, not having achieved his goal, can kill his friend at any time. Zod himself breaks through the roof and flies out of the castle. Casca's squad goes inside, and she herself blames Guts for almost killing Griffith because of him. In the kingdom, the dukes discuss the merits of the Falcon squad and even envy them. They are rude to Guts passing by, but he does not remain offended either. Honorable guests came to Griffith's chamber, who want to enlist his support in the future. Guts was about to goad him, but Casca beats him out of the entrance. He no longer resists. In the yard, he swings his sword as usual, while thinking about the words that Casca said to him. Griffith himself approaches him after the meeting. He himself is unhappy with such guests. Together, they discuss Zod. Griffith learns from Guts that he survived thanks to his pendant around his neck. Their conversation is distracted by the King of Midland with his brother Julius. He praises the merits of the Falcon squad. Behind stood the king's daughter, Charlotte. As she was leaving, she accidentally stumbled and Griffith supported her. Something flashed between them. But Julius considered this disrespectful and hit Griffith. Guts was about to investigate, but Griffith stopped him and apologized for his insolence. Upon the recovery of Guts and Griffith, an attack was launched on the castle, in which the commander of the Blue Whale Detachment, Adam Kobrowitz, was present. The main entrance was protected by the strongest fighters of the fortress. Adon assured his soldiers that they would not be able to get around from the flank because the river was very deep and wide. During the night, Guts' party made a passage across the river with ropes. They sent the bird to Griffith to signal the start of the fight. The detachment of the Falcon appeared in the field of view of the fortress. Sir Adon, learning about this, realized that they wanted to lure them outside and ordered them to wait inside. When the entire Guts detachment moved, the messenger reported this to Griffith, and he in turn ordered to retreat out of sight. Guts with 2 more knights pretended to be enemies and opened the gates and began to attack. Soon his entire detachment was inside the fortress. Griffith heard the roar of the horn and sent his squad to the main gate. Sir Adon, seeing the loss, takes off on a raft. All the enemies inside were defeated. The fortress was cleared for safe paths between castles. Adon justifies himself to General Boskin, but he promises not to defend him again. The King of Midland promotes Griffith to Earl. Julius is furious with envy. He becomes even angrier when he learns that his White Dragon squad will not accompany the king on the annual spring hunt. Foss, the prime minister of the kingdom, incites him to overthrow Griffith from his rank or kill him. They are going to shoot a crazy poison arrow on the spring hunt. During the hunt, the Falcon squad does not skillfully cope with the capture of game. Charlotte tells Griffith that this is her first time at such an event and she does not like it, just like the war. But a wild boar, running out of the bushes, frightens her horse and she gallops away. It's a great moment for Julius when Griffith is separated from the rest. He, chasing the princess, stops her horse and she hugs him. Moving away from Charlotte, an arrow is fired into his chest and Griffith falls into the water. Guts and Casca arrived immediately and tried to track down where the arrow had been fired from. But abruptly he rises and pulls an arrow out of his armor. It turns out that she hit the same royal egg on his chest. Charlotte apologizes to him and thinks it's her fault. Julius is even more desperate because everyone decided that Griffith was covering the princess with himself. He fights with his archer, whom he trusted to kill him. Julius becomes scared that he could understand who was going to kill him. In the evening, Guts visits Griffith in his tower. The victim asks him about the murder. Griffith bribed the maid and found out all about the assassination plan from Julius. He asks him to kill an archer from the White Dragon squad. Guts has no right to make a mistake, but he takes it. He watches from the rooftop Julius, who ruthlessly trains Adonis, his son. Guts tracks him down to his house where he kills Julia. The son saw this and Guts had to kill him. He makes his way out of the fortress through the guards. Guts was wearing a hood so no one knew who he was. He escapes the castle and jumps into the drain tunnel. While escaping, he was shot in the arm with an arrow. He returns to the castle and learns from Casca that Griffith is now at the princess's ball. As they approach, Guts sees him talking by the fountain with Charlotte. Casca stops him to talk and ties up his wound with the clipping of his sleeve. During the conversation, Guts hears Griffith's phrase that for him a true friend is the one who can stand on a par with him. He remembers Zog's words, but their conversation is interrupted by a maid who announces the death of the uncle of the princess. The next day, Griffith communicates with Foss. He reports that there are rumors in the courtyard that Julius was killed by a man from the kingdom. Foss is also afraid of him, although he believes he left no evidence. Charlotte wants to give a gift to Griffith. It was her mother's godstone. He promises to return it after the battle. Charlotte's mother is indignant that her daughter communicates with a simple person, not of noble origin. The people of the kingdom say goodbye to the Falcon Squad before the battle with the Blue Whale Squad. It was a battle on the plain without buildings. In the middle of the battle, Aegon sees Casca and accuses her of being unworthy of being a captain. He knocks her off the horse, and then aiming a trident at her at the cliff, wants to take her prisoner. But Guts helps her and deflects Aegon's blows. But in one of these, he cuts his weapon and knocks him off his horse. He gives his hand to Casca, but Aegon shoots him in the side with a crossbow, and together with the girl, Guts falls down into the river. The cart carried them to land, where he performs CPR on Casca. She begins to breathe, but she has a high fever. He takes it under the root of the tree, because it is raining outside. Guts keeps her warm like she once warmed him. The commanders do not allow the royal soldiers to be sent in search of Guts and Casca. They believe that the most experienced leaders will be able to cope with such a problem. Casca wakes up and remembers nothing. She scolds Guts for undressing her. He gives her clothes and Casca calms down. The girl talks about her cruel childhood. There were often wars in her village. One day, a noble took her from the village to make her a maid, but he only wanted to mock her. Then she met with Griffith, who saved her. Casca wanted to go with him, even though she was the first girl in their ranks. She also reveals that Griffith used to earn dirty money for the sake of his army. He was given to a rich old man for the development of the army. Casca is very grateful to him for all this and wants to help him to the end. All this was before the arrival of Guts, because he only told him that he wanted to see him in his ranks. He was the first person to whom Griffith spoke such words. Casca was very jealous of him and could not forgive Guts for trying to kill her savior. All this she told on emotions, until their conversation was interrupted by 3 warriors who were looking for bodies. Under the tree they remained until night, and then they got ready to go. Helmet is still weak and 8-8 goes. Guts cheers her up and she gets to her feet. At one moment, a crossbow arrow flew. They were surrounded by a detachment of the Blue Whale. Aegon wants to capture both, but Guts only taunts him. Opponents flew at them from all sides, but even together they killed them one by one. Aegon calls for his younger brother Samson. His weapon was a super heavy mace, but Guts fights off and even breaks it, and then kills the warrior himself. He sends Casca home while he fends off opponents. Aegon can no longer control his army and assigns 5 times the salary to whoever defeats Guts. An arrow flies into his hand, but this does not stop him from continuing the battle. Running away, Casca also fights off the mercenaries, but she is still being chased. They undress her and want to abuse her. The help of the Falcon detachment has already arrived at Casca and repulsed the offenders from her. She calls for help to Guts and leads them herself. Running to the place, they see hordes of dead warriors. Guts sits by a tree half asleep. They took him to the doctor's room. Warriors no longer live with such wounds, but his health needs only rest. Judo, one of the squad, gives Casca medicine from fairy dust. She wanted to take it to Guts in the ward, but only found it on a hill. She treats him and the pain immediately goes away. Guts claims that he gave the fight only for his own sake. He does not appreciate his heights compared to Casca or Griffith. After the merits of Guts, Casca forgets the grudge against him. Together, they discuss the beauties of the view from the hill. He also reveals a lot about himself and his intentions, but they were interrupted by Judo, who announced the return of Griffith. Casca apologizes to him for his well-being in battle. The next war was between Dondry and Midland. Midland's troops have already lost 40% of all troops. The detachment of the White Tiger was almost completely defeated. Griffith only waits for orders and says that his squad alone will be able to deal with the enemy. Other commanders are furious and believe that the Falcon's former merits are good luck. In his fortress, General Boscan expels Adon for such heavy losses. Lord Genin is the king of the fortress of Doundry. It was to him that Griffith was once given for the sake of money. Boscan is the commander of the Purple Rhino Knights. It was they who defeated the White Tigers. Now the band of the Falcon was attacking Doundry. At first, they split into two parts in order to get to the commanders faster. Boscan underestimated their numbers. Genin is waiting for a meeting with Griffith, so he does not want his death. He himself goes down to the army and appoints a promotion to the one who catches Griffith and gives the order to pursue the Falcon detachment. They retreated because it was part of their plan to lead the enemy into an ambush. There was a river behind them and there was nowhere for them to retreat. While all the troops were sent to pursue the Falcon squad, Casca's squad attacked the empty castle. Only Adon remained there, and with him his super heavy squad. Casca grappled with him, and now he was already an easier opponent for her because then she was unwell. Adon pretended to give up and fired a poisoned arrow at her surreptitiously. Casca's body began to weaken, but she gathered her strength for the last move. The messenger reported to Genin about a warrior who did not allow the army to reach Griffith. Guts scattered everyone and at one point met with Boscan. He hit him little by little and cut through his armor. This time, Guts felt close to his own death. After that horde of warriors, Guts' sword was damaged, and now it is broken after another blow. But abruptly, a sword flew from the sky, right under his feet. With it, Guts beheaded Boscan. The army lost control. The warriors began to scatter, and Griffith himself approached Genin. Lord Genin sucked up to him, remembering the past, but Griffith was angered by this, and he killed him. The band of the Falcon celebrated their victory. Guts visited Casca and took her to Griffith. The weapon that fell at Guts' feet was thrown by Zod himself to the Nosferatu. In the kingdom, Foss again plots to kill Griffith, but now with the Queen of Midland. In the castle, the detachment is met by residents with congratulations. The crowd rejoices and discusses the exploits of the heroes. Griffith's death is planned to take place at a celebration in honor of the victory. Griffith and a few other warriors who have come to the ball are pestered by girls, questioning them about the battle. Guts can't stand the questions and walks away. Casca finds him and takes him outside with her. She says that she does not like the whole situation. Guts notes her beauty among the others. Casca senses that he is about to leave the Falcon, but they are interrupted by shouts from the audience. These were the faces of the meeting of the king and his family. He gives a speech about the successes of Griffith's detachment and promises to appoint him commander-in-chief of all Midland detachments in 2 days. According to Foss's plan, Griffith was to get a glass of poisoned wine. It was brought by a servant who also knew about the plan. The king offered to drink for the heroes, and then Griffith, raising the glass to his lips, fell to the floor. At that moment, Casca was right in front of him and caught it. The crowd fell into silence, and the sentries closed the doors. The servants were already happy with the huge money for this and galloped out of the city. Guts met him with his sword. The conspirators discussed their murder and praised Foss. But at one point, smoke begins to come out from under the floor. The Queen looked out the window and saw Griffith. He set fire to the castle and faked his own death. Instead of poison, he drank a tincture, the effect of which is similar to death. The circle of conspirators was killed. In fact, Foss framed the Queen. In the morning, he received a letter from Griffith, in which he asked for help in this matter. Even earlier, he read fear in Foss's eyes and suggested that he could be against him. The Queen's funeral was in the morning, in which the Falcon fighters also took part. Winter came. Guts is about to leave. He doesn't want to live like someone buried under Griffith's dream. Casca sees Guts leaving and runs out of the castle after him. She tries to stop him with how much has happened to them during his time, even though they didn't get along very well. Casca believes that only Griffith can stop him. Guts, Judo, and Corcus stop at a bar and chat before he leaves. Corcus laughs at him that he cannot rejoice in life, but only waves his sword. Guts knows this because no one ever understands him. He says that he wants to finish the heights like Griffith. Corcus accuses him of being childish, although he always tries to be cool himself. He leaves as Judo sees Guts off. Judo asks him how he likes Casca. But Guts sees in her only a comrade, although he admires her. They reach the other friends. There, Corcus expresses his hatred for him. Griffith won't let him go. He remembers that he got Guts in a fair fight and he belongs to him. Casca wants to calm them down, but the Falcon's tradition has been to solve problems with swords. Griffith lunges and hopes to parry his blow, but Guts is not the same as before. He breaks Griffith's sword and stops his broadsword at Griffith's shoulder. Griffith falls to his knees and Guts leaves without looking back. In the evening, Griffith knocks on Charlotte's window. There they communicate and later kiss. A maid spies on them and runs away. In the morning, Griffith is already waiting for the cavalry and detains him. Guts came to the tournament. There he meets in a duel with the famous warrior who killed 100 Midland knights. Guts defeats him, but spares him. He stayed in a hut with the blacksmith Gunnet and his girl Erica. There he continues his training. Erica wants to follow in her foster father's footsteps and become a skilled blacksmith as well. Guts learns from a running customer that he is ordering a lot of swords to fight the mercenaries. And the gang turns out to be the former Falcon squad led by Casca. Griffith was imprisoned in a dungeon on the very top floor. Casca is very worried about this. They want to plan his escape, but they don't have the strength to do so. Judo tries to support her. Without Griffith, their squad is no longer as strong. Most of the people immediately ran away. Their camp is attacked once again, but Guts arrives just in time. The army immediately gained strength of mind when they saw their former commander. They defeated the bandits and ran to Guts. They said that Griffith was accused of treason, and they were expelled from the kingdom and fought with them. Corcus accuses Guts of betrayal. Judo hints to him to talk to Casca, because it was not easy for her. Meanwhile, Griffith is being tortured in the kingdom's basement. He's already so exhausted that he can't scream. Casca is mad at Guts. She attacks him, but Guts only tries to defend himself. Casca believes that Griffith couldn't go on without him, that he alone caused the Falcon squad to fall apart. She hits him with her sword, but Guts doesn't dodge on purpose. During the fight, she realizes that she is wrong, but she cannot believe it. Casca can't stand it and wants to fall off the abyss, but Guts catches her. She can't accept being a woman. She calls him a fool and kisses him. Casca has always harbored hidden feelings for Guts. He agrees to help Griffith and bring the Falcon squad to their knees, but after that he leaves again. They gathered a detachment, chose tactics, and headed for Midland. It went after Griffith. In the meantime, he was already exhausted and he seemed to be monsters from the walls. Casca's detachment of the strongest 4 fighters arrived at the cemetery. One of the coffins had a secret entrance. Guts, Casca, Judo, and Pippin have already flowed in the kingdom's underground drain. The remaining wounded in the camp were resurrected in spirit at the thought of Griffith's return. Rickert, the youngest fighter left in the camp, leaves for water to the river. He sees a ferry, but immediately afterwards, terrifying screams from the camp. When he comes running, he sees rivers of blood of his comrades and a bunch of monsters that killed them. Having got out of the drain, they are met by people sent by Charlotte. They lead the detachment to the dungeon where Griffith is being held. After killing the guards, they descend to the very bottom. The fighters see a withered body with cut tendons and a cut-off tongue. He was wearing a spherical mask. The door slams behind them and the sadist who tortured Griffith chuckles at them. The door was very strong, but Guts, in a rage, demolishes it along with the rapist. Guards are already waiting for them on the stairs. Guts fights his way upstairs where more guards are waiting for them. He kills everyone while Pippin is carrying Griffith. Another horse guard was sent behind the detachment. It's already morning, but the chase is still going on. Corcus' unit was in ambush with archers, but the cavalry caught up with them and the commander took Griffith hostage. Guts darted and killed him, knocking the others off his friend. Having made a halt on a hill, they are in despair because they counted on the former commander, but now he will not even be able to speak. The fighters overhear Guts' conversation with Judo about a possible departure and altogether ask for him. Casca rewinds Griffith and trembles all over. She keeps telling Guts that she can't go after him because Griffith is so weak. The commander himself dreams of his childhood. Griffith finds strength in himself, sits down behind the wagon and gallops after his illusion. Guts follows him. Griffith's wagon trips over a rock and falls into the river. In the water, he finds his amulet. Everyone notices that there is an eclipse in the sky. Guts runs up to him and sees a crying egg in his hand. At one point, the whole sky and earth are covered with red weeping faces and silhouettes of warriors appear behind Griffith. Casca, despite the situation, is trying to build everyone. Nearby, the silhouettes turn out to be monsters who speak in unison about the coming of 4 angels. Indeed, the 4 giants that the rest of the monsters worship began to appear. The most important points to Griffith and calls him blood relatives and master. They require his sacrifice to turn Griffith into a demon. Guts realizes that all the demons he has met were once humans who obtained a demonic behelit egg. Griffith is carried to the altar on bloody faces. They begin the christening ceremony. The demons reminisce about the past and how exactly Griffith got the behelit. The same old woman who gave him this amulet shows him how many people were killed on the way to his dream. Griffith's solution was to sacrifice himself. At this point, all the fighters who survived were branded and Griffith was separated from everyone else. Guts tried to break through to him, but the material of the walls was indestructible for a person. All those branded were sacrifices. Pippin dies saving Casca. Judo carries her away on a horse and his arm is wounded, and Corcus was led by his greedy desires and was also killed. Judo dies protecting Casca. In fact, he loved her, although he guessed about her love with Guts before they themselves. Griffith is in a cocoon and is already turning into something. Guts fights furiously, but falls down where everything is covered in the blood of his comrades. He sees Pippin and runs towards him. but it turns out to be a demon hiding behind him. He sees Casca still alive, but a monster grabs his hand. At this moment, Femta is born, the former Griffith. He flies up to Guts and kisses Casca in front of him. Guts makes a desperate decision and cuts off his hand. He runs towards them, but the demons stop him. They gouge out his eye and force him to watch the mockery of Casca.